Kilimanjaro. Yes, because Fuji made cameras. He was moving up the Rainbow Road. Then came the moment, the 50,000 pounds question, the penalty question that could save him or sink him. Which classical guitarist wrote the opera The Child and the Enchantment? Was it Ravel, Segovia, or Rodrigo? Dole's mind went blank. He used his SOS. He called Rodney. Back in the flat, Rodney and Cassandra were dressed as a policewoman and a gladiator, an attempt at fantasy therapy that had gone horribly awry when Dell unexpectedly stayed home. When the phone rang and Jonathan Ross's voice came through, Rodney thought it was Mickey Pierce winding him up. "Oh, piss off, Mickey, you're getting on my tits now," Rodney shouted. But it was real. "Rodney, help me." Dole's voice pleaded through the speaker, the guitar question: Ravel, Segovia, or Rodrigo? Rodney, with the confidence of a man who had once heard a record in a library, answered, "Ravel, 100% Dell." "Ravel," Dell shouted to the nation. "Derek," Jonathan Ross said, a look of genuine pity on his face. That was the wrong answer. It was Segovia. Dole's heart didn't just break, it imploded. He had lost. He had lost the money, the flat, and his dignity on national television. Chapter 6: The Phone Call of Destiny. Back at the flat, the mood was funeral quiet. Dell was missing, having disappeared into the night. When he finally returned, he looked older, tired. The vibrant, larger-than-life characters seemed to have been hollowed out. "I could have sworn it was Ravel," Rodney muttered, looking at his feet. "Everyone knows Ravel makes shoes." Dell exploded, though there was no real heat in it. It was a trick question, and you fell for it. They sat in the dim light of the living room, the reality of bankruptcy settling in. They were back at the bottom, but they together. Then the phone rang. "Hello," Rodney answered. "Yes, can I ask who's calling?" He handed the phone to Dell. "It's the producer of Gold Rush." Dell took the phone, his face hardening. "I bet it's about that podium. I bet someone's damaged it. Probably Jonathan Ross tripped over his own ego." "Hello. Yes, this is Derek Trotter." Dell listened. His eyes widened. His jaw dropped. His hand began to shake, and for a moment, Rodney thought he was having another hard turn. "What? No, no." He looked at the family, his face transforming from despair to a manic, golden joy. "He said there's been a mistake," Dell whispered. "It was Ravel. The researcher got it wrong. I've won the 50,000 pounds. The room erupted. Cheers, hugs, the sound of champagne, or at least the promise of it, filled the air. "I knew I was right," Dell shouted, his voice regaining its Peckham swagger. "Give the money to charity. Pull the other one. It's got bells on. We're the Trotters, and we're back." Chapter 7: The Nag's Head Jubilation. The news of Del Boy's windfall spread through Peckham faster than a cheap suit in a rainstorm. By the time the Trotters arrived at the Nag's Head, the pub was already buzzing. Sid, the stand-in landlord while Mike was away, had already lined up a row of glasses. Trigger was there, looking at a pint as if it contained the secrets of the universe. Boyke and Marlene were in their usual corner, Boyke looking particularly smug as he adjusted his silk tie. "I hear you've come into a bit of official money, Del," Boyke drawled, his laugh sounding like a machine gun in a library. "50 grand. Hardly enough for a decent cigar, but for you, it must feel like the crown jewels." "Jealousy is a terrible thing, Boyke," Del shot back, slamming a stack of notes onto the bar. "A round for everyone," said, "and make it the good stuff. None of that house vinegar." "Nice one, Del boy," Trigger said, nodding slowly. "I knew you'd win. I had a feeling in my water." "You always have a feeling in your water, Trig," Rodney sighed, leaning against the bar. "Usually it's just the plumbing." As the night wore on, the alcohol flowed and the stories grew taller. Denzel talked about the trial, Denzel still shaking his head at the memory of Trigger's testimony. But beneath the laughter, there was a sense of relief. The Trotters weren't just back in the money, they were back in their element. "I'm telling you, Rodders," Del whispered, his arm around his brother's shoulder, "this is just the start. 50 grand. That's seed money. We're going to turn this into 500. Millionaires by Christmas, I promise you." Rodney looked at his brother, seeing the old spark back in his eyes. He knew it was unlikely. He knew they'd probably lose it all on a shipment of one-legged trousers or glow-in-the-dark Bibles. But for tonight, he didn't care. "Yeah, Del," Rodney smiled. "Millionaires by Christmas." Chapter 8. The Morning After. The sun rose over Nelson Mandela House, casting a long shadow across the parking lot where the yellow van sat, a silent witness to their roller coaster life. Inside the flat, the air was heavy with the scent of stale celebration and burnt toast. Del sat at the small kitchen table, a mountain of paperwork spread out before him. The Inland Revenue, the Customs and Excise, the various business associates who had suddenly rediscovered his phone number. "What are you doing, Del?" Raquel asked, coming in and placing a hand on his shoulder. "Just planning, sweetheart," Del said, his voice quiet. "This 50 grand. It's a lifeline. But we have to be smart. No more sure things. No more Central American markets." "You mean it?" Raquel asked, her voice full of hope. Del looked up at her, and for a second, the mask of the salesman slipped. "I have to mean it, Raquel. For you. For Damien. For the memory of the old man." He looked at the empty chair where Uncle Albert used to sit, telling tales of the war and the sea. He could almost hear the old man's voice, warning him about the sharks in the city. "We're going back to basics," Del declared, his voice regaining its strength. "Trotters independent traders, buying and selling, finding the gaps, being the bestest.